fall down, so we don't do that. Yeah.
Starting to get a bit more pointy.
I don't like sitting down. I can't breathe properly. So, I just need to get the notes. Which is about time to start, I think.
Thank you.
The first one's got 5 verses too.
I like 4 of the 6 songs. So,
Which other one?
Neville.
well picked up. It's too much. I don't know. So people doing words. How many verses have you got? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. The Great Southland has a new first verse that Denise Champion wrote, and so that we'll just need to look at the screen for the Great Southland. Could you please show that to Kay so she can see what we're referring to? Yes. So this is a new verse that Denise Champion, who's Denise Champion's Aboriginal woman. So she's written this verse.
So it's a 4 verses. Okay, cool.
Yeah. This is the Great Southland. So please look at the words on the screen. Look at the words. Yeah, but I refer to them on the screen. Just because.
We've got them on the screen, have you done it? Richard? Good.
Yes. I'll get the Richard sing the words first. Thank you, Richard. Especially with that one 5 verse. Right. So this is
Yes.
add a verse. Yes.
You can see it for a while.
Or it doesn't really matter.
It does actually, because there's an extra note for the second verse which I've been playing, trying to play. So
Yeah.
Can we have
keep playing.
can we have a copy for each of the singers rather than look on there?
That was a good pickup.
We'll look up at the screen, Trevor.
Yes. And the first is like, yeah, we know this.
They're not the same at all. You're going to have to sit up.
Note to self, don't drop burning matches on the floor. Good morning everyone and welcome to Blackwood Uniting Church. My name is David Lister and welcome to those who are online and in person as well. And welcome to those who are still arriving. I know there'll be a few of those. It's often me. I'd like to start today with an acknowledgement of country. I'd like to acknowledge that the land that I live and work and sit and play is the traditional lands of the Kaurna people and respect their spiritual relationship with country. We also acknowledge the Kaurna people as the traditional custodians of the Adelaide region, and their cultural and heritage beliefs are still important to the living Kaurna people today. I'd like to pay respects to elders past and present, and respects to the cultural authority of Aboriginal people who might be visiting from other parts of Australia or watching online from other parts of Australia. I was at an event a few years ago now, the Reconciliation Walk, where one of the Kaurna elders invited us to do acknowledgement of country in language. And I do this at work a bit, and people always say, "Oh, well done, Dave, for having a go at Kaurna language in country." But let's be honest, I learned it by rote from watching YouTube. It's not too hard to do. And so I invite you, if you ever get to do an acknowledgement of country, to just Google acknowledgement of country in Kaurna and watch it a few times and write it out and have a go, just like we learn any other language. So, Nadlu Kaurna Miona Tampati, Paniata Matanya Pakanunku, Nadlu Tampati Kaurna Murna Purapurna, Pankawama Kaurna Kuntiyata. And if anyone is a Kaurna speaker here, I invite you to correct me. Moving into the call to worship. So here in this space, heaven and earth touch. Here in this space, the gateway to grace is wide open. Here, the people of God come to worship. And God enfolds us close in a welcoming embrace. I am with you, God declares. And we repeat God's welcome in this community of grace. Let us worship. Father, help us listen to the groans in our midst, O God. Creation's groans of labour pains, our neighbours' groans of loneliness, the groans we bring with trepidation and awe. We come bringing the yearnings that are on our hearts this day. Draw us into your waiting presence where we can learn how to wait as you wait. Eagerly, hopefully, joyfully, for your holiness to grow in us and for your Spirit to transform us into people living out your grace. Amen. And now we have a song.
still, for the power of the Lord is moving in this place. He comes to cleanse and heal, to minister His grace. No work too hard for Him. In faith receive from Him. Be still, for the power of the Lord is moving in this place.
Hello, it is good to be here, and it's good to be a part of this community of faith. Just one thing before we have our prayer of confession. Did you pick up a stone when you came in? There's a tray of stones there. If anyone's missed out and would like to go back and get one, or I could get someone to bring the tray around. Who might still need a stone? Actually, I haven't got one myself. And I'm wondering whether the children have got... Actually, thank you. Beautiful.
This metal tray's making me feel
It will all come clear, hopefully. I might say these were all grown in on our block, in our garden. We grow stones very well at our place. Thanks, Dave. We bring our time of confession. God, we truly confuse your time for our time, your world for our world. We lose sight of what is truly important and think we have all the answers. When we feel strong and confident, we forget you and your dreams for this church and the world. Help us to see that we are wound up in a tangled web of community, with you always at the centre. Hear the word of affirmation. Our God is patient and understanding. We are waiting and groaning, but God is at work already, revealing hope that we cannot quite see. Still, this hope saves us. Our God redeems us and revives our spirits again. This is the mystery and the glory. Alleluia, alleluia, amen. Now, it's great to see we have some children here. Would you like to come down to the front for a little while? I'd love to have a chat with you. It's great to see you. Hello. That's better? Good. Hello. My goodness, you're a bit outnumbered today, aren't you? Lovely to see you all. Now, I'm just wondering whether any of you ever dream when you have a sleep. Do you sometimes wake up during the night and think, oh, that was an interesting dream, or do you remember any of your dreams? Yeah, you do? Now, Stephanie, is that right? Would you like to tell us about a dream or not? No. It's a bit strange. Sometimes dreams are we sort of wake up and we think, oh, was that real or not? And then we realise it was just a dream. Some dreams are good dreams, might make us feel happy. Other dreams might make us feel a little bit scared or a little bit sad. We had our 7-year-old grandson for a sleepover a few nights ago, and he came into our room in the morning and said, I had a bad dream. He was very glad to wake up, I think. Now, we've got a story today that we'll be hearing a bit later on about a guy called Jacob, and he had been quite a naughty boy, and he had run away from home, and he was out in the wilderness, and he got tired, and so he looked around, and the best he could find for a pillow was a stone, a much bigger stone than that, of course. That wouldn't make much of a pillow, would it? Can you imagine going to sleep with your head on a stone? Do any of you have a stone pillow? No, I don't think so. I can't imagine going to sleep on a stone, but he went to sleep on a stone, and when he was asleep, he started dreaming, and you've no idea the dream he had. He dreamt that he saw a ladder that went from earth up to heaven, and going up and coming down the ladder were angels. It was like he was connecting with the ladder from where he was lying on the ground with heaven, and the angels were coming up and down. And then what's more, he heard a voice, and the voice he figured had to be the voice of God telling him that he was going to be all right, that he had a future, and that God would bless him. That's pretty. Can you imagine having a dream like that? It's a bit incredible, isn't it? But you know, one thing Jacob learnt out of that was that even though he hadn't done the right things, that God hadn't given up on him, that he had a future. And you know, that's pretty important, that all of us know that even if we do things wrongly, we get things out of order, or we say things or think things or do things that we wish we hadn't afterwards, that God forgives us and never gives up on us. So I want you to remember that whatever happens in life, God is always with you and never ever gives up on you. Do you reckon you can remember that? Okay. Now, a bit later on, it'd be great if we could see what you're doing, if you've got anything to show us. But if you'd like to go back to whatever you're doing over there, then we'll see you later. Bye.
Thank you, kids. I had a great question this morning that I'll pass on later on from a certain 7-year-old who may have been up here earlier. Why we have a rocks today, Dad? And what are we doing with the rocks? I'll just leave that question with you. I think it's one worth holding on to. It's time for the Bible reading, so I invite my reader to come up. Reading today is from Genesis 28 and Psalm 139. Now Jacob left Beersheba, and he went toward Haran. He came to a certain place and stayed there the night, pretty much because the sun went down. Taking one of the stones, he put it under his head and lay down in that place.
O Lord, you have searched me and known me. You know when I sit down and when I rise up. You discern my thoughts from far away. You searched out my path and my lying down, and are acquainted with all my ways. Even before a word is on my tongue, O Lord, you know it completely.
he dreamed that there was a ladder set up on earth. The top reached to heaven, and the angels of God were ascending and descending on it.
You hem me in behind and before, and lay your hand upon me.
And then the Lord stood beside him and said, I am the Lord, the God of Abraham, the father of Abraham your father, and the God of Isaac. The land on which you lie, I give to you and your offspring, and your offspring shall be like the grains of sand. Different. Be like the dust of the earth. I've read the Bible too much. And you shall spread abroad to the west, and to the east, and to the north, and to the south, and all the families of the earth shall be blessed in you and your offspring.
Such knowledge is too wonderful for me. It is so high that I cannot attain it.
Know that I am with you, and will keep you wherever you go, and will bring you back to this land, and I will not leave you until I have done what I have promised you.
Where can I go from your spirit? Or where can I flee from your presence? If I ascend to heaven, you are there. If I make my bed in Sheol, you are there. If I take the wings of the morning and settle at the farthest limits of the sea, even there your hand shall lead me, and your right hand shall hold me fast. If I say, surely the darkness shall cover me, and the light around me become night, even the darkness is not dark to you. The night is as bright as the day, for the darkness is as light to you.
Then Jacob woke up from his sleep and said, surely the Lord is in this place, and I did not know it. And he was afraid and said, how awesome is this place? There is none other than the house of God, and this is the gate of heaven.
Search me, O God, and know my heart. Test me and know my thoughts. See if there is any wicked way in me, and lead me in the way everlasting.
So Jacob rose in the morning, and he took the stone, and he put it under his head, and set it up for a pillar, and poured oil atop of it. He called the place Bethel. Thank you. And now we have time for another song.
This song probably won't be familiar to you. It's a Lynona song. Surprise, surprise. I always manage to slip one in, don't I? This is one that you may not have heard. It's called Stumbling Blocks and Stepping Stones. See, we've got this stone theme happening. It's to a tune, Banks and Brays, so you'll probably know the tune, but we're going to get, I think Heather's going to do the first verse, and then the men all the second, all the third, women the fourth, and all the fifth. Hopefully that'll work out. It is fairly wordy, but the words are worth thinking about as we sing it too.
Unsure when what was bright turns dark, and life, it seems, has lost its way. We question what we once believed, and fear that doubt has come to stay. We
the Spirit groans, and clutching at each roll we find more stumbling block than stepping stones. And when we lie as lost in bliss and silences and lost mistrust, or anger boils and tempers flare as love comes under death from us, where people cannot take the strain of ruthlessness and endless wounds, or pattern with the future weave, just storming roads, no stepping stones. Where hearts that once held love affair and faith in shreds compounds the mess, where hymns and prayers no longer speak and form of friends no longer bless, and when the church was sounding long, no more than empty thrones, the plea is made, if you are there, turn stumbling blocks to stepping stones. Our God, you with the Maker's eye, can tell with hope that's fit is real, and see if life is more than what we suffer, dread, despise, and feel. If some by faith no longer stand, or hear the truth your voice intones, stretch out your hand to help your foe from stumbling blocks to stepping stones.
There is something about a lot of the Iona songs that they really connect with real life. They really, I suspect that all of us would have cottoned on to some of the things that were expressed in that song and thought, yes, I understand. It's just a shame it was so high, but you did very, very well finding a note that wherever you could join in. Rocks. Pile of rocks taken at our Queensland daughter's place. We've recently been visiting our Queensland daughter and granddaughter, and they'd been given a big pile of rocks from a neighbour. Now, while they remain in the pile, they might provide a home for lizards, etc., but surely they have other uses as well. And as you know, rocks and stones have different shapes and sizes and colours, from pebbles to boulders. Some are granite, hard, others soft like limestone. Some are smooth and rounded, while others have jagged, sharp edges. There is certainly no uniformity about them, a bit like people actually. And I think you would have discovered that with the stones there on the tray, there will not be two that are the same. If They will all be different, different shapes, different feel, etc. And these are just little ones. Now, one thing I've discovered is that stones in the rough don't really fit neatly together, like bricks or jigsaw pieces. Each one needs to be treated individually in order to build something useful. And while we were in Queensland, I spent quite a while trying to put together rock borders to enhance the garden and help to keep the soil and mulch in place. And the skinks still will find their hiding places. That's part of our daughter's garden up there. It's a bit of the border I managed to put together. So, rocks and stones have their uses in building walls, etc. But I'm not so sure about their use as pillows. Back in 2009, I shared a weekend retreat with a group of women from the Ceduna area. We had the use of a house at Smoky Bay and had a great time exploring the various references to rocks and stones in the Bible. And there are quite a few when you come to explore, considering the stumbling stones, the stepping stones, the cornerstones, and the living stones of our lives. On Saturday evening, our meditation was a stone to dream on. And we spent time with the story of Jacob, which we've heard this morning, sleeping and dreaming upon his stone pillow. To prepare, I did some Googling on the story, and I found a piece written by a guy in the US, sharing that he had headed into the desert to try to emulate Jacob's experience. He was disappointed. It didn't work. He simply did not get any sleep on his stone pillow, and as a result had no inspiring dreams. Surprise, surprise. But back to Jacob's story as to why he was in the wilderness in the first place. He was on the run from both his father Isaac and his brother after deceiving Esau out of his father's blessing and his inheritance. Of course, these things are never simple. There was also the matter of his parents wanting Jacob to marry within his tribe and not a foreigner, as his brother had done. So here we find Jacob a long way from home, possibly beating himself up for his actions, wondering what sort of reception he would receive when he finally arrived at his relative's place. Exhausted, he flops onto the ground, rests his head on a stone, falls asleep and dreams. We all have different experiences when we dream. Some people don't recall their dreams when they wake, while for others of us, a dream can be so vivid we have difficulty working out whether it was dream or reality. Some can be comforting, while others can be deeply disturbing or downright nightmarish. For some, a problem with which we have been wrestling might become more manageable after a dream, as though our subconscious has been at work during our slumber. Some dreams we definitely can connect to events in our lives, while others seem bizarre and out of left field. I remember after my father died, I had difficulty remembering what he looked like before the massive stroke that eventually took his life. One night, some weeks after his death, I had a dream in which my father came into my mother's lounge where our family was gathered. He was my dad from before his stroke. I was so excited, and in the dream I kept on saying, look, Dad's here, he's come back. But no one else took any notice of me, but for me it was absolutely wonderful. From then on, the memory of him in the nursing home, shrunken, unable to talk or connect with us, was all but gone. For me, that dream was God's healing gift of reassurance and restoration. While Jacob, lying on the ground with his head pillowed on a stone, might have felt alone, he very soon found out that was not the case. A vivid dream beyond his wildest imaginings became for him a profound assurance that he had not been abandoned. Interestingly, his dream didn't connect with his past misdemeanours, but rather gave him an insight into the future God was offering him. It was an inspiring encounter of grace with the divine. He might have run away from his family, but he could not run away from God. I imagine that Jacob might have woken up at first thinking, what on earth was all that about? Yet the words he heard in his dream had sunk in. He did have a future, one in which God would continue to fulfill the promises first made to his grandfather Abraham. Jacob was able to continue on his journey with confidence and hope. Psalm 139 assures us that we can't run away from Holy One. Where can I go from your spirit? The answer is bluntly that we can't. Wherever we go, however we might try to escape, Holy One knows where we are, knows all that is happening to us, knows our deepest fears, struggles and yearnings. That doesn't mean that we escape the challenges and difficulties life throws at us, but it does mean that we are never alone. Even though I walk through the valley of darkness, the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil, for you are with me. We likely will not have a graphic dream like that of Jacob to assure us that we are not abandoned, but in different ways we can experience the strength and comfort of God's presence holding and guiding us. At present at Blackwood Uniting Church, in this part of the liturgical year, that is generally known as ordinary time, we are looking at it as extraordinary time. And for Jacob, there was no doubt the vision he experienced as he slept was absolutely extraordinary. But it was only part of the story. Part of his story. There are a number of stages to the passage we heard today. Firstly, there was the running away. We run away, figuratively or literally, for a variety of reasons. Maybe from danger, fear, guilt, responsibility, or because we are simply rebellious or after an adventure. In our world today, huge numbers of people run away from conflict and violence, seeking safety and a better chance in life. Yet eventually the time of running has to cease. If we adapt the Ecclesiastes 3 passage, a right time for every passage, for everything, we might say there is a time to run and a time to stop running. And then what? For Jacob, it became a time to sleep. Exhaustion overcame him, so he slept, even with a stone on which to rest his head, and he dreamt. There is a time to sleep and a time to dream. Now no doubt Jacob would have pondered this dream long after waking. He memorialised his dream by upending the stone pillow into a pillar. And making an altar of it and pouring oil onto the stone. This became an act of prayer and worship to the God of his ancestors, who had promised to journey with him and his future offspring. And then there is a time to wake up and a time to worship. There is a time to move on in faith. Jacob's dream experience enabled him to move forward with a sense of peace, a different person from the one who had fled his home in fear and disgrace. Whether we are awake or asleep, we all dream. Some are dreams of our subconscious, while others definitely emanate out of our conscious minds and hearts in response to circumstances in our lives and world. Some of our dreams may seem impossible, yet they give us the motivation to keep on persevering. One that is well known is the "I Have a Dream" speech, which drove Martin Luther King Jr., along with countless others, to fight for justice. I'm sure you have heard it. I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, the sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood. I have a dream that little children will one day live in a nation when they will not be judged by the colour of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream that one day down in Alabama, one day right here in Alabama, little black boys and little black girls will be able to join hands with little white boys and little white girls as sisters and brothers. I have a dream that one day every valley will be exalted, every hill and mountain shall be made low, the rough places plain, and the crooked places will be made straight, and the glory of the Lord will be revealed, and all flesh will see it together. This is our hope. This is the faith that I go back to the mount with. With this faith we will be able to hew out of the mountain of despair a stone of hope. With this faith we will be able to transform the genuine discords of our nations into a beautiful symphony of brotherhood. With this faith we will be able to work together, pray together, to struggle together, to go to jail together, to stand up for freedom together forever, knowing that we will be free one day. The battle for Martin Luther King Jr.'s dream to be realised continues today. Another dream shared by people around the world was that one day the Berlin Wall would be pulled down, built in 1961 to stop the East Germans defecting to the West. This 3.6 metre wall completely cut off by land West Berlin from the surrounding East Germany and East Berlin. Families and communities were forced to live apart, with only people from the west entering the east of the city on special permits. Over 100 people died attempting to cross to freedom, while several thousand more escaped by various means, some losing their life in the attempt. The wall not only caused much heartbreaking separations but it also symbolised freedom and the lack of it. While people and nations prayed and spoke out against the injustice of the wall, that it would ever be removed seemed like an impossible dream. Margaret Silf, a writer, spiritual director and retreat giver, lived in West Berlin when the wall was still new, and this is her story. I functioned as a thin and fragile vein, tenuously connecting the severed limbs of the family by virtue of my foreign passport that opened the borders for me, albeit creakingly. None of us then had truly believed that we would see the day when the wall would fall. Everyone believed that it would surely come, sometime like the second coming, but no one expected it. When we woke each morning, we didn't even think, maybe today? We adjusted our dreams and our visions to the lack of freedom, peace and justice, instead of adjusting our world to embody our dreams and visions. The tide suddenly turned, while no one was looking. The wind of change blew up like a freak storm, whipping up our unspoken desires. No one who knows the city will ever forget the day that freedom pierced the darkness like a bolt from the blue and made the first breach in the wall that had seemed so permanent. It came so suddenly, so utterly surprisingly, like a baby in a stable. A word with the power and the desire to leap from mystery into history and turn the world's course away from darkness and into the radiance of God's dream. There are many situations in the world today where it seems a dream is all people have to keep them going. This year, we are on a journey towards a referendum later this year with the First Nations people of Australia and the Torres Strait Islands. The Uluru Statement from the Heart was the outcome of First Nations people from many different tribes gathering at that huge rock, Uluru, sharing their stories, their struggles, their hopes and dreams to work together towards a better and more hopeful future for their people. The word makarata is used in the statement, and it means the coming together after a struggle, facing the fact and wrongs of living and again living in peace. While the word dream is not actually included in the statement, dreaming has been a timeless concept of moving from dream to reality, which is itself is an act of creation and the basis for many Aboriginal stories. May we be open and humble in listening to different points of view, experiences, hopes, and yearnings to learn and grow in understanding and respect for our First Nations people, for their brothers and sisters, and to find ways to walk with them into the future. Rather than being stumbling blocks, let us live in such a way that we are stepping stones, living out God's blessing with generosity, peace, and love. We now have our next song, Spirit of Dreaming.
Spirit of dreaming, come.
We now bring our offering prayer. With all that we have and all that we are, we reach out to you, our God of generosity. We ask that you receive our gifts of time, talents and money. May they be used to offer extraordinary blessings in our community and world. May these gifts remind us that through you all is possible. Amen. We now have our community time, and I don't know, are there any things to go up on there? No. Oh yes. Here we have extraordinary times. Is anyone? Oh, you're going to. And yes, Jane is going to share her extraordinary story.
Thanks, Lynona. Yes, I wanted to share my extraordinary time, which was walking on country with the Adnyamathanha people in the northern Flinders Ranges, and they're the people of the rock people. So it's very timely that we're doing that today. Next slide, thanks. Oh, can't really see it at all on that other one, but you can hear. Can you click a couple more times, please? So, and two more times. Yep, there we go. We travelled, it was a bit like travelling through Europe, many countries. The countries here were Ghana. On the way up, we went through Naranga, as well as Nakunu, Bangalara, Kuyani and Adnyamathanha country. And on the way back through Clare, that's Nadjeri country. Thanks. Our community times, this is a group of us who went on country. Thanks. Next slide. And our walk on country, so Port Augusta, Saltia, Corn, Colebrook. And we talked about the Reconciliation Park here, just down in Eden Hills, and we went past the Colebrook that was near Corn. And then Wallachra, thanks. Urubilla, Copley, Igawata, Minarawata, which is Ramgate Paddock, and Nepabunna. So there's about 650 k's there and back, and I'll just share a couple of stories with you. Thanks. One is from ancient times, and there was a story about the Murakuli, and that is giant dogs like thylacine, and probably this story, Denise Champion, the Reverend Dr. Denise Champion, told it to us. The story is probably 30,000 years old, but the megafauna is probably around 2 million years old. So this story is a truly ancient one. And I won't, you can ask me about it later, but they're available in the books that are in our library that Denise Champion has authored. And the story about the creation of the first day involves the big dogs, the Murakuli, frightening the people. And then they got help from Aldiyanada, the barking lizard, and Adnu, the bearded dragon. And those two, the barking lizard and the bearded dragon, helped them and killed the giant dogs. I have 2 large dogs myself, but and the land was dark and the people were very much afraid. And then the Adliyanadu and the barking lizard and the Adnu, the bearded dragon, helped the people. And who here knows which way north is? Anyone? Anyone got some? Oh, you got a few hands this way. My big tip is the sun was coming through that window, so that's got to be east. So I figure. So anyway, the Adnu, the bearded dragon, threw the boomerang, which in the language of the Adnyamathanha people is called the Wadna, into the north. Nothing happened. It was still dark and the people were very much afraid. So then through the Wadno to the south, still dark, and the people were very much afraid. And then through the Wadno to the west, thank you, still dark, people very much afraid. And finally, the boomerang was thrown to the east, and the sun came up. And that is the story of creation. And Denise Champion describes creation as the voice of God. So God has been here the whole time. Thank you, Richard. Our next story in our journey is from Wallachra, and I call this Old Times. And in 1860, that's when Wallachra happened. And the big plains, there's another story about the kangaroos creating the plains in the hills. But there was a pub, of course, being Australian, you have to have a pub. But the creek was flooding the cellar out, and that was no good. So they diverted the Wallachra Creek and created a new bridge. The consequence of that was all of the river red gums died from where it was. And Denise shared this story to say that decisions have consequences. And actually that pub's not there anymore. And so the consequence of that, these are memorials, and she says that it's important, the environment is important and our decisions are important. Thanks, Richard. And so actually now we've been ancient, we've had old times, we've got current extraordinary times. And there's a referendum happening. One of the things that I found very helpful was I need to decide for myself what I want to decide. I need to think about what information will help me decide for myself. And then I need to make a decision. Thanks. Next slide. And so for me, taking the time in this current place, first of all, reading the proposed question for consideration is something that I have done to get myself informed. Have a chat. What matters? And as a I've been a nurse for over 30 years, and health outcomes are really important to me. And one of the evidence-based things is asking patients about what's called goals of care, but that doesn't mean anything to people. What we now ask is, what matters to you? And what people say matters to them, we incorporate into clinical decisions, and that's effective in helping people. And so when I think about, well, what matters to First Nations people about decisions that impact them and their health, that leads me to read the Uluru Statement of the Heart, which I have done. And finally, I think about, what does this mean for me? And I make my decision. And so that's my extraordinary times and the journey I have been on to have my decision. Thanks, last slide. The last slide, Richard, thanks. And that's just some country that I saw on the way. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. Thank you, Jane.
Thank you, Jane, for an amazing story, amazing, extraordinary time walking on country. Thank you. We welcome back today Peter from Sydney for a few days visiting. Peter and Julie have been in Sydney on what was meant to have been a holiday, but has proven to be anything but a holiday. And I was wondering if Peter might just want to say a few very brief words to us.
Thanks, Michael. Gee, it's nice to be here and see you all. It's just lovely to be back. And Julie and I thank you all for your thoughts and prayers over this time. I see this time here and how time flies. We went for 6 days and it's now 6 weeks, and it's going to be longer. But 2 hours after arriving on the plane, an accident on the light rail, and Julie ended up in hospital, and lots of investigations that were a little inconclusive, and lots of tests, but hospital time, rehab time, and then second opinions just this week gone by has led us to another hospital, and Julie is due to have an operation on her back on Wednesday next because she has a crushed disc, and that's caused the ongoing pain along with the tears to her muscles and tendons that happened when she fell on the tram. So Wednesday we hope that that's going to relieve things greatly. The doctor assures us that's the case, and maybe 2 or 3 weeks' time we might even be home. But thank you again.
If you've read your newsletter this week, you'll see that we have quite a few holes in our playgroup team to fill now that Bruce is no longer coming. I don't expect to have one person do everything that Bruce did, but there are some opportunities for people who'd like to just spend a few minutes or an occasional Monday helping out at playgroup. In particular, there's setting up and packing up, and there's even a spot or two in the tea room, tea roster. So if anybody is interested and in spending a little bit of time with the children who come and the parents, or just helping out with some packing up and cleaning up and setting out and so on, see me afterwards. And I do need some extra help today and next Sunday because we have to set up the Dean room as well as the Hewitt room because no mainly music on Friday, and next weekend the rooms are being used by other people, so we'll have a full setup to do today and next week, so it would be very nice to have some extra help.
Just a quick comment. Oh,
so I just sneaked in. Just a reminder to you that in about 10 minutes' time there'll be a congregational meeting, and hopefully it won't be too long, but so if you can get a cup of tea and then come back here when our 11 o'clock friends will join us, and we'll have a meeting at which we'll appoint the Joint Nominating Committee for the appointment of a new minister.
I think we might need to move on, mightn't we? Now, where am I up to? We now have the prayers of the people.
I had a little anecdotal story about the question my son asked me about, Dad, why are they pouring oil on the stone? But since we've got to move on, you'll just have to stay in the unknown, just like him, and I won't tell you. We pour oil onto this stone to remind us that this is the house of God. As we bring our prayers for healing, we know that God is here. We know that God is here. For all who struggle with grief or fear, anger or pain, hear our prayers. For all who face a crossroads, a time of choosing, hear our prayers. For all who find it hard to come into the presence of God, or who find church non-receptive, who find church ungracious, hear our prayers. for all who are on journeys home, for all who are setting out on new ways, and for all who feel trapped and unable to move. Hear our prayers. May the Spirit be poured out on us all. As a part of the prayers of the people, Michael asks that I passed on that news that this morning Judy Amami's mum passed away in the early hours of this morning, and so we pray especially for Judy and family at this time. It's fine. Cool. It's all right. I'll let someone else answer that. For our affirmation of faith, we believe in God, always and everywhere. We'll start again. I invite you to participate and read this with me. We believe in God, always and everywhere, present and active from all times beginning, and long last our conceptions of times ending. We believe in God always and everywhere, with women and men framing stories to explain our connectedness with the mystery. We believe in God always and everywhere, in Jesus of Nazareth, revealing holy relationship and urging practice love. We believe in God always and everywhere, in our times and lives, promoting gracious welcome and responsible participation in God's unfolding reign. We believe in God, always and everywhere.
We have our final song. It's a song we haven't sung for a long while, The Great South Land of the Holy Spirit. I discovered this revised version, and the first verse of it was actually written by Reverend Auntie Denise Champion and her sister and some friends. And it used to sing, "This is our nation." They have Jeff has changed it to "This is your nation, God's nation."
This is our nation, this is our land, this is our future, this is our home, and every people willing to share this sacred land. This is our home. This is the great South land of the Holy Spirit, a land of red doves plains and summer rains, and in the sunburned lands we will see us love, and to this great South land His Spirit comes. This is our nation, this is our land, this land of plenty, this land of home, a land of reaping, a land of harvest. This is your land, this is our home. This is the great South land of the Holy Spirit, a land of red doves plains and summer rains, and in the sunburned land desolation.
As you go from this place, may God's love hold you, may God's light guide you, may God's liberation free you. Go out into the world with blessing in your life and the blessing for the lives of the others. May every rock and stone be a place of wonder and hope. Amen.
I can't stop. Can you hear me?
So, as Adrian said, we're now continuing with the meeting, and it's time to grab a quick cup of tea or coffee if you're so inclined, and come straight back.